I'm Angela Kennecke. Thanks for joining us on Inside KELOLAND tonight. On the program, we are going to discuss a new resource for the opioid crisis here in South Dakota. Then we will look at how you can help encourage new readers with a book drive here at KELOLAND TV. And we will end today looking at the difference in the generations. Well, Minnehaha County is on pace to surpass drug overdose deaths from last year. Out of nearly 40 overdoses, 10 people have died of drug overdoses since January in Sioux Falls and the surrounding area. Last year at this time, the number of people who overdosed and died was at 7 and rose to more than 20 in 2018. This year, 3 of the overdose deaths have been from fentanyl. Fentanyl is a powerful synthetic opioid that has been sweeping the nation. Fentanyl deaths increased by 1,000% in a 6-year period nationwide. Another 3 overdose deaths in the Sioux Falls area were from meth. The rest were from a combination of drugs. As we have showed you, it has killed hundreds of thousands of Americans over the past 2 decades, cost hundreds of billions of dollars, and touched every state in the country. Now the opioid crisis is in court. Mary Maloney has highlights from the historic trial happening this week.
Passion inside an Oklahoma courtroom.
If you oversupply, people will die.
As the state attempts to force a pharmaceutical company to pay for the opioid epidemic.
Johnson & Johnson made millions, if not billions of dollars, improperly promoting and selling these addictive, destructive, and deadly opioids.
The state claims Johnson & Johnson acted as a greedy drug kingpin, which cost Oklahoma billions and destroyed thousands of lives.
Johnson & Johnson knew opioid drugs were addictive and caused harm. Despite that, they marketed their drugs as safe and effective for everyday pain.
Johnson & Johnson fiercely denied the claims.
The Food and Drug Administration of the federal government said it rarely causes addiction.
And says Oklahoma's public nuisance charge is being misused.
States, as regulators of healthcare practice, have the responsibility and authority to monitor and correct inappropriate and illegal prescribing.
This is the first major trial of nearly 2,000 other cases around the country, attempting to hold a drug maker accountable for a crisis that has cost American lives.
I look forward to the end of this trial so we can all come together and reason and end this crisis.
I'm Mary Maloney reporting.
You can get the latest updates on that court case on KELOLAND.com. With dangerous drugs like fentanyl on the streets, it is more important than ever to get a loved one or friend suffering from substance use disorder into treatment. But often people in the throes of addiction refuse to acknowledge that they have a problem. One route people close to them can take is to have them committed into treatment involuntarily. That can take up to 15 days to get an involuntary commitment to go through the court system. It can also be a confusing and expensive process. The South Dakota Department of Social Services is putting out a brochure on the steps to take an involuntary commitment process for someone suffering from substance use disorder. And joining me now is Tiffany Wolfgang, who is the Division of Behavioral Health with the Department of Social Services. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Tiffany, this brochure that has just been put out by the Department of Social Services, it is a new brochure to kind of simplify what is really a process that has been around for decades.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. We had identified that there's a need to really educate individuals on how to initiate that process for their loved one, and wanted to break it down in a way that would be maybe more digestible to someone who doesn't understand the legal system.
What brought that about, the idea that it does need to be simplified for people?
Sure. Certainly there was some discussions during the last legislative session about the process on how to make improvements, which we absolutely support. And so then taking a look at what resources are currently available and how do we make those available in ways that folks who don't have the legal background can understand how to initiate it.
Right. I think during the last legislative session there was an attempt to take it out of the court system and put involuntary commitments before the Mental Health Board, which would speed up the process, make it much quicker. I think that is maybe one of the hard things about this whole process is it can take some time, and that's why it's important that people know what to do as soon as possible.
Sure, absolutely. I think the more education folks have, the awareness that folks have on how to get help for their loved ones, the better off we all will be prepared to help folks that are struggling.
It is probably one of the #1 questions I get asked by people who are trying to help a loved one or a friend. It doesn't have to be a family member.
Sure, certainly. Yep. Yeah, and I would encourage folks to, look at the local resources they have in their communities, local treatment providers that can help provide them some guidance, reaching out to attorneys if they have an attorney, and really help kind of guide that process. Again, unless you're really familiar with how the court process works, it can be overwhelming, and it's scary when your loved one is experiencing the behavior that you just don't understand.
I think also what's hard for people to get through or to get to is the denial and often the defiance, and people don't want to admit they have a problem. And in today's world where we have fentanyl out there killing so many people, the old adage that you had to wait till rock bottom to get somebody help, rock bottom these days can be death or brain damage. So how important is it that somebody intervene?
Yeah, absolutely, especially with the opioids that, with the fentanyl that we're seeing, the immediacy of the issue is brought it to the forefront. I think, unfortunately, with the opioid crisis, it has really, if there can be a positive, it's raised awareness on a topic that folks typically don't want to talk about. Addiction is a disease. It's a very challenging disease at times, and I think it's important the more we can raise awareness for individuals to first understand what their loved one is going through, that it's not choices, it's not just a person being bad or naughty, that these are chronic health conditions that we need to seek treatment for.
And the Department of Social Services is working hand in hand with the health department, the state health department, on many of these things, correct?
Absolutely. We've partnered on the efforts with the opioid crisis through some federal grants that we received. We have numerous projects going on. A lot of those focus around awareness, the public awareness campaign, the avoidopioidsd.com website that we've supported. Individuals from South Dakota willing to share their personal stories. The 4 individuals that put themselves out there to share their stories so they can help others. That has been a big project. The training through for first responders with Narcan, that has been a huge project. We have partnered with prescribing providers across the state so that medication-assisted treatment is available for individuals with an opioid use disorder. We have partnered with Face It Together to bring peer recovery supports, so that's another option for loved ones who maybe don't know where to turn, is that service is available for loved ones of individuals that are going through some challenging times.
Now, you talked about a lot of things in that short little bit of time. It is confusing for people. There is a way just to go online, and we're going to put a lot of this material online as well, but that's one thing. You want people to know the resources are out there.
Yeah, absolutely. If we could do anything through this is raising awareness of if you don't know where to go or how to get help, contact the Division of Behavioral Health, contact the helpline 211. We also have an opioid crisis hotline, 1-800-920-4343, that really is available to answer any questions regardless of it's just open to anyone to really help drive home resources and give people someone to talk to when they're not sure who to talk to.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being here. If you know of someone struggling with addiction, we have put the newly released steps on how to get someone into treatment who is unwilling to go on KELOLAND.com, and we also have put a number of other resources on our opioid crisis page. Still ahead on Inside KELOLAND, for the last several weeks, KELOLAND Investigates has been looking at who fails to register or re-register for the sex offender registry when they have a new address. Coming up next, we investigate what's being done to track down these known sex offenders whose whereabouts are unknown. When Inside KELOLAND continues. South Dakota's sex offender list has nearly 4,000 people on it. People who've been convicted of sex crimes are required to register so you can know who is living in your community or neighborhood. But not every sex offender follows the law. In an Eye on KELOLAND investigation, we look into how many are failing to register, who among them are the most dangerous, and what is, or in some cases isn't, being done about it. Being convicted of a sex crime in South Dakota could get you on the sex offender registry for life. But not everyone is following the letter of the law. Like Glenn Zurcher, he recently found himself back behind bars accused of failing to update his registration. In 2002, Zurcher was convicted of raping a 14-year-old girl at the age of 21. But not everyone who fails to register ends up behind bars. Take Ernest May. He's listed on the Illinois registry as a sexual predator and for failing to register there. Then this month, May was picked up and charged with failing to register in South Dakota. May was let out on bond on the condition he register as a sex offender in South Dakota by 5 p.m. on May 13th and keep his registration current. KELOLAND Investigates has checked South Dakota's list every day since then, and no Ernest May is listed.
Well, it's very difficult to track them down. People are very transitory in nature. People can fall off the grid.
Is it dangerous to have people out there that haven't registered?
I would say yes.
KELOLAND Investigates has dug into the backgrounds of some of the most violent offenders who have failed to register. Niles Poorbear sexually assaulted an 11-year-old girl in Nebraska in 2015. He's listed as unlocatable on South Dakota's registry. In 2002, Jonathan Martinez was convicted in South Dakota at the age of 47 with having sexual contact with a 15-year-old. He's also on registries in Texas and Florida. Lee Hill was convicted in Vermont of a sex crime involving a 10-year-old girl. Marcus Dumarce sexually abused an 8-year-old girl, and William Carter was convicted of sexual contact with a 16-year-old boy. KELOLAND Investigates was able to track down an address on Carter, and we went to check it out. Are you William Carter?
No, I'm not.
The same apartment complex was also listed online as the address for Nima Tamang, who was convicted of rape. We asked a tenant in the stairwell about him. Do you know him?
Yeah.
You know him? Does he live here?
He does live here before, but now he don't, I think. I think he already moved somewhere. So, he no more live here, I guess.
Some offenders you'll look at why they may be in violation here, and they may be unlocatable here and have a warrant for their arrest, may have actually transited to a state or jurisdiction where they are not required to register. That are on the list, that have been on the list for a long time, have left the state. They've gone other places in the country.
But it's more than just Sioux Falls detectives on the lookout for many of them. Those with federal convictions and who have crossed state lines are also on the federal marshal's list. And the city receives federal money to try to find them.
So now everyone is out looking for these people. They're also entered into the NCIC system. So anytime a patrol officer has contact with an individual that's on that list and they run their name in the computer system, pops up that they are an unlocatable or non-compliant registered offender.
One such offender is Leon Sales. Sales was listed as a violent offender on the Tennessee registry for a 1995 conviction of attempting to commit aggravated sexual battery. He was recently in court in Minnehaha County on felony failure to register charges where he pled not guilty and was released. He's scheduled to go on trial August 12th. While overall the Justice Department found South Dakota in compliance with the Sex Offender Registration and Notification Act, the new report found that South Dakota does not include offenders' employer or school addresses or vehicle information. The Justice Department report also points out that while 6 of the state's 9 tribes use South Dakota's Sex Offender Registry, 3 do not. Instead, the Sisseton Wahpeton Oyate and the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe and the Yankton Sioux Tribe have their own registries. We'll be right back. KELOLAND Media Group is teaming up with Reach Literacy to hold a book drive outside of our KELOLAND television studios. Joining me now is Paige Carter, who is Executive Director of Reach. Maybe we could talk a little bit first. Paige, Reach has been around for a while.
Right. We've been around since 1986, and we were Sioux Falls Area Literacy Council, and our primary mission is we teach adults how to read and write. So we also operate a beautiful bookstore, and the proceeds from that bookstore go back to support our mission.
So you rely on donations for the bookstore, and
Yes.
that's really what you're looking for here in this book drive,
Exactly. Last year we collected 80,000 books for the year, so we're hoping to get 100,000 this year. So
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we're ahead of schedule, so we'd love it if we could kind of blow it out of the water.
Is there still a big demand for the actual printed book these days?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we are doing a bag sale today, and it was hopping when I left. People like that book. They like to be able to hold on to it. There's a smell to a book, there's a feel to a book.
Yeah, I have a teenager who loves to read, and she
Yes.
prefers a book rather than an
I mean,
electronic
I
device.
have both. I've got my Kindle, but I still like the book itself, and I
Right.
like to know how far I am, you know?
So what kind of books are you looking for? Are there something that's most popular, or?
You know, we have kids books, we have adult books, fiction, nonfiction. I think the thing that's the least donated to us is science fiction and young adult. So those are probably our two largest, like, if you ask us what we're looking for. But kids books are huge. We do a ton of teacher grants and book grants. Anytime you come into the store, you can get 5 free books for kids. So we gave away 12,000 kids books last year, so we'd like to give away 20 this year. So if you have kids books and your kids are moving up and not reading them, there's a place for them.
You know, and a lot of rummage sales, a lot of garage sales this time of year, but you really don't get very much money for a book. So it's really kind of neat to don't, maybe you get, you know, 25 cents or
Right.
$1 or something.
Right.
So it's really neat to donate it and know that it's going to such a good cause.
Right, and we see people come in, they're like, that was my book that I donated, and they really like the fact that it's going back to teachers, or kids come in and get super excited about that. They get to take something home with them. And we know reading starts at home, so we want to support that.
How many adults have you taught to read over the years?
Oh gosh, over the year, I don't know if I know that. This year we're already at like 130 that we've worked with so far this year. We do individual tutoring, we do group tutoring, and we also tutor on site at workplace. So we have a workplace program at Sanford where we teach adults to read right on site, and also at Avera. And Grand Prairie Foods is going right now.
Oh, okay. How do people find out about the program typically?
You can go to our website at reachliteracy.org, or you can give us a call at 332-2665 and visit with one of us, and we'll be happy to visit with you.
We're going to put all of that information for you online as well, but
Awesome.
we want to also let you know about that Monday, June 17th
Yes.
book drive. You can bring your books down here to KELOLAND Television. We're going to have all kinds of people volunteering from Kelo. Come meet us.
And if you get them to your car, but you overpacked your box, we'll help you unpack them out of your car, because people forget books are heavy.
Right, that's
Right.
true.
Yeah.
That's true. And just really any kind of book for any age.
Yep. The only thing we really ask is that they're in moderately good condition. If they've been chewed on by your dog, it's okay to recycle them. If they're dirty or moldy, just feel free to recycle them. But a good quality book, bring fiction, nonfiction. We'll take just about anything.
Okay. Well, we look forward to working with you.
We're excited.
And collecting a lot of books on June 17th.
Do you want to have a goal? Should we have a goal?
You name it.
I would say, I think if we could do 15,000, that would be great.
15,000
That would be
books.
awesome, wouldn't it?
That means you all at home have to bring some books down to KELOLAND. All right. June 17th. Thank you. Well, you have probably heard about millennials, but there is a new generation making waves right now. We'll be back with that story. Move over, millennials. There's a new generation moving to the forefront, and the first crop is going to work. Generation Z is the umbrella for men and women born between 1996 and 2010. And they're not all kids anymore. Many of them have graduated from college or high school just this month. And that has experts wondering how their next move will shake up the workforce. Millennial Brady Mallory finds out what makes Gen Z tick and asks an expert why employers should pay attention to what influences and motivates these up-and-comers.
Here it is. Instagram gives you a better picture of student life at Roosevelt High School. It's also a snapshot of its curator, Addison Miller.
The Instagram's my pride and joy.
The last days of Addison's senior year have the 17-year-old positively beaming about what he's going to do next. In a few years, he'll enter the workforce. He wants to be a teacher.
But I don't want to change the world. I want to change people, and I want to help kind of people become their best selves.
This isn't just Oprah's goal. It's actually a hallmark of Generation Z.
I'm so stoked. I'm stoked for the future of Social Media Club.
Addison was born July 30th, 2001, a little more than a month before September 11th. He's always had social media at his fingertips.
We're the social media, we're the I generation.
And he doesn't remember a world without war or school shootings.
So we've always lived in a world that was very protective, like don't attack us, don't attack America.
Why is all of this important? Well, every little thing that has influenced Addison and the rest of Gen Z is about to show up in your office. And you better start figuring out how to work with it.
It's very exciting to see what they're going to bring to the table.
Scott Zimmer is a generational keynote speaker for Bridgeworks in Minneapolis and frequently speaks in KELOLAND. He's already noticing what's shaping Gen Z. Here are a few of the influencers. Zers were born into the internet and YouTube. They're socially conscious and more accepting than previous generations.
They've never known an Ellen from the 80s that was a stand-up comic.
I kid a lot because I'm a comedian.
She was always a lesbian with a talk show.
Why don't people talk like this more often on talk shows?
And they don't flinch at that.
Employers, listen up. Here's some other Z traits you'll want to pay attention to. This generation is inquisitive, and Zimmer says thanks to YouTube tutorials,
hey, I'm Charles from Louis Purple, and I'm going to teach you how to tie a bow tie.
Loves step-by-step instructions. There's another hand that guides this group. It's the generation that MySpaced so Z can Instagram.
Not only is plenty of feedback important to the millennial worker, but so is the ability to move up and move up quickly.
Early on, millennials were always sort of told to follow your dreams, reach for the stars. A lot of parents were saying, look, if you're going to work for as long as I did and as hard as I did, find something you love, make it count.
Then this happened.
But now it's official, we are in a recession.
After 2007, millennials sank into a last place no participation trophy could fix.
This generation is saddled with all this student loan debt, and they found that, and they get so much grief because a lot of them might still live at home.
Zimmer says this is a big reason why Addison and his peers are risk averse when it comes to jobs. Addison, a fixture in his social media club, has a different take on taking risks.
We're a lot more open to danger, kind of a lot more open to stupid things like eating Tide Pods.
First of all, don't eat Tide Pods. Second, let Addison explain the rationale many of us old-timers think is anything but rational.
But I get 1 million views on YouTube, right? I mean, like, it's a dumb situation, but I mean, 1 million views on YouTube is quite a bit of money.
Knowing how to turn comments into coin could help Generation Z boost a business's bottom line. Zimmer says if employers do pay attention, they can harness this. ClickRain CEO Natalie Eisenberg is already seeing new graduates apply for jobs and internships. With all this fuss over Z, she says, don't forget the ABCs of the office. Value everyone from all generations.
So we all kind of have to recognize that while we have differences, we can come to the table and learn from each other, and everyone has something to teach us, no matter what generation they're from.
Just like Instagram, we're only getting a snapshot of Generation Z. Zimmer says it'll take a few years for experts to truly understand Z's influence on the workplace and on the world. Addison Miller is optimistic about his generation. He says he can't wait to see what develops.
Whatever that mark may be, I just hope it's a lasting one. I hope it doesn't get brushed over by the sands of time. I just hope that it stays. I hope that we leave a mark that really matters.
With Eye on KELOLAND, I'm Brady Mallory.
Although the oldest age for a Gen Zer is 23, the median age for a Gen Z is 16 years old. If you're curious about how this generation could work with traditionalists, baby boomers, Generation X, and millennials, you can visit Bridgeworks' website. We've posted a link for that page on Inside KELOLAND on KELOLAND.com. Thanks for watching.